Hello, this is Professor Frederick Krantz at the Canadian Institute for Jewish Research. Today is October 25th, 2012. This is our Isralert 2.0 in terms of our file, and we're going to be looking today at the Syrian crisis and its general implications in the Middle East and in the U.S. more broadly. Now, we're going to look at Syria for a number of reasons. The situation in Syria is probably the worst one of the several Arab Spring circumstances that continue to unfold. But this one has the potential, probably more than any other, of involving regional actors and supra-regional actors as well, from the United States and Europe to Russia in the East. It's very important to understand what is going on there. The rebellion against the dictator Assad, Bashar Assad, has been going on now for 18 months. It has developed into a civil war. As we speak, over 35,000 people are dead, twice as many probably wounded. There are 250,000 refugees spread around the Arab world, in Turkey as well, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan. A massive crisis has emerged. The war itself, the Syrian war, is part of a much wider struggle that has been unleashed by the Arab Spring, and that is a struggle between Sunni forces connected to Islamist elements, as we see in Egypt, where the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamist group, has come to power. A struggle between the Sunnis, who are opposed to Assad, Sunnis, and broadly speaking the Shiite world. Assad is not a Shiite, he's an Alawite, but Alawite movement is a branch of the Shiite movement. The Shiites are supported, of course, above all by Iran, and Iran through Lebanon, through the Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon, controls indirectly Syria as well. So there's a struggle for control of what is a key country in the Middle East, whose borders touch many other countries, including Turkey, including Lebanon, including, of course, Israel. The Middle East is a powder keg, and the center of that, the fuse in some ways, is Syria. And there's great fear, of course, that the Syrian civil war will turn into, because of the intersecting forces supporting one or the other party, into a regional crisis, a regional conflagration. So people say, don't do anything, leave it alone, let them kill each other, so to speak. It will go on for some time. Both parties will be weakened, and that redounds to the general benefit of the region. On the other side, there is a group which says, yes, you have to intervene. We cannot let this go on. Why? Because if we can defeat Assad, then we will, in fact, severely weaken Iran. Iran will be ejected from the Middle East. Syria is the main foothold in the Middle East. And if we can defeat Iran by defeating Assad, we will also severely weaken Hezbollah in Lebanon. And of course, if you're watching the news, you've seen that the war has now spilled over into Lebanon. And there's a great deal of Sunni, Shiite confrontation and tension going on. And the Sunni head of Lebanese intelligence was just blown up in an assassination bombing, supposedly by good authority, via the Syrians, right? So that's part of this powder keg dimension of the issue we're looking at. So defeat Assad, play to the non-Islamist elements in the rebellion, and try and install a relatively pro-Western, a relatively Pacific regime in his stead. Then there is the sheer humanitarian dimension. The West, led from behind, as he put it, President Obama, moved into Libya a year ago and played a role in defeating Muammar Gaddafi and installing a new regime in Libya. And people are arguing, if you moved into Libya, presumably in order to prevent the murder of civilians, that was the reason given for the NATO intervention, it's true a fortiori in Syria. There already are 35,000 people murdered, mostly civilians. Right? It's ongoing. The Assad regime is using tanks, mortars, artillery, airplanes, vicious weapons of all kinds against civilians, against its own people. And how can the West, how can the U.S. stay out of such sheer, almost genocidal violence? And there's great pressure to, in fact, increasing pressure to intervene in some way or another. Which brings us to the U.S. election, because the U.S. election is a key element in the dynamics of this situation. And there the Syrian situation has become, although muted, nevertheless it has become an element in the Democratic and Republican race and competition. The Republican Romney, in a number of statements, has said that he is in favor of measured intervention. He would like to try and stop the slaughter by providing weapons to non-Islamic forces, if they can be so identified. He's also in favor of setting up a free-fly zone to prevent the use of air power by Assad and to protect civilians. That kind of zone is emerging on the Turkish border, by the way, where the Turks are exchanging artillery barrages with Syrian forces as we speak. The Republican, rather, Romney doesn't want to use U.S. troops, but he would use U.S. resources to support the rebel side. President Obama, on the other hand, is less, at least publicly, committed to even that level of indirect intervention, although he is giving non-military aid to the rebel movement. But there are recent reports that the U.S., in concert with Turkey, has in fact begun to allow certain arms to reach the rebels. So who knows what may happen. Israel has an overriding concern, one overriding concern. The Israelis, I think, generally are happy to let the two sides weaken each other and let the thing unfold, except the longer it goes on, the less stable the regime is, and the less stable the regime, the more concern there is about its chemical and biological weapons. Syria developed a very large, very diverse set of chemical and biological weapons. They are housed in a number of military bases. There is increasing concern that those bases could be overrun, that the weapons could fall into the hands not simply of the rebels but also of the Islamists who are fighting with the rebels. And the overriding concern of Israel is to prevent such weapons from getting into the hands of their enemies, who might, in fact, be moved to use them. The U.S. has also indicated, here Obama has been very clear, that the one red line he has about American intervention would be triggered if, in fact, the weapons fell out of the control of the current regime, which presumably is more reliable and guarded insofar as their use is concerned. Election, which is coming up now on November 6th, a little less than 2 weeks. If Romney wins that election, I think we're going to see a clear shift in U.S. policy towards Syria, and more generally towards the Middle East, and above all, of course, towards Iran and this overriding issue of the Iranian nuclear weapon, the imminent Iranian nuclear weapon. So that's where we are. A terrible circumstance is unfolding as we speak. We don't know where it's going. It is extremely dangerous. We can only hope that somehow or other, before or after, probably after November 6th, there will be some kind of resolution. Keep your eyes on CIJR on our website at www.isranet.org and our publications like the Daily Briefing for further updates on the situation in Syria, in the Middle East, and on the American election. Thank you very much, and shalom.